The nightlight buzzed as I opened my son's bathroom door at 3 a.m. and saw paperwork with my name already filed for a home I never chose. Still, I kept my hand on the knob, breathing slow, letting the cold metal steady the fire rising in my chest. As the silence thickened, that faint hum from the bulb began to sound like a warning siren just for me. While I stared at those signatures, I realized my own child wasn't protecting me, he was preparing to erase me. The same light I once trusted for safety now revealed the truth of our relationship. That's when I shut the door gently and decided, if they wanted me gone, I'd leave, but on my terms, not theirs. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. When my son finally opened the front door, he looked like a man who had been hoping the knock belonged to anyone but me. "Hey, Mom," Daniel said. His voice tried for warmth, but it drove like a car on ice, careful, tense, always a second from sliding. He leaned in for a quick hug that ended before I could decide how tightly to hold on. The house behind him smelled like disinfectant and artificial citrus. Floors shining, walls a uniform gray, not a shoe out of place. It was the kind of order that comes from either pride or fear. I wasn't sure which one belonged to my son. "Come in," he added, stepping aside. My suitcase wheels thumped over the threshold. In the entryway, a family portrait hung at eye level, Daniel, his wife, and their daughter on a beach. No second couple, no grandparents, just the nuclear three, complete without me. Jenna appeared from the hallway, smoothing invisible wrinkles out of her top. "You made it," she said, lips stretched into a smile that stopped just short of genuine. "I did," I answered. "Traffic behaved." "That's good, we run a pretty tight ship here." She gave a short laugh that didn't sound amused. Routine keeps everyone sane. Behind her, smaller footsteps approached. Maya peeked around Jenna's arm, her face brightening the second our eyes met. "Grandma," she burst out, squeezing past her mother. She threw herself at me with the kind of full-body hug children give before they learn how to hold back. My hip protested, but my heart didn't. "I missed you," I murmured into her hair. "We set up a room for you," Daniel said. The words came out like a status update. "Let me show you." I followed them down the hallway, cane tapping a slow rhythm. Family photos lined one wall. I counted how many of them I'd been present for, not many. He opened a door near the end. "Here it is." The space was smaller than I expected. Cardboard boxes towered against two walls, each labeled in Jenna's exact handwriting. Seasonal, files, baby stuff. A folded treadmill leaned in one corner like a retired soldier. In the center of it all was a metal cot, narrow and low, covered with crisp sheets that didn't belong to any real bedroom set. I took it in quietly, no dresser, no proper bed frame, no chair to sit and read, just a cleared rectangle in their storage area that now had my name on it. "We're still rearranging," Jenna said quickly. "We haven't had someone else living here before, we'll adjust." Her wording landed heavier than she probably meant it to. "It's temporary," Daniel added, "until you're fully steady after the fall." This just made sense. Not welcome, not we wanted you close. It made sense, like moving my belongings on a spreadsheet. "It'll do," I said. Years as an ICU nurse had taught me to make peace with uncomfortable surfaces. I've slept in worse places. Maya's face fell a little. "It's not bad, right?" she asked. I put the blanket on the bed. Only then did I notice the soft blue throw folded at the foot of the cot. That piece at least looked like love. "It's perfect," I told her. "You have good taste." We headed back to the dining room where dinner waited, plated and symmetrical. Roast chicken, salad, rolls like a picture in a magazine. We took our seats. The scrape of cutlery felt louder than the conversation. "So," Daniel started, "we'll need to get your medication schedule written down so we can keep track." "Already typed and printed," Jenna said, nodding toward a neat stack of papers on the counter. "We'll put it on the fridge. Structure will be important." They talked about dosage times, pill colors, refill dates. No one asked how the nights had been since my husband died. No one asked how it felt to shut the door of the house where I'd spent 4 decades. Across from me, Maya watched our faces instead of her food, eyes flicking between each adult as if reading a chart no one had handed her. Halfway through the meal, I excused myself. Could you point me to the bathroom? I asked. Hallway, Daniel said, second door on the left. I walked down the corridor, my hand brushing the wall for balance. At the second door, I wrapped my fingers around the knob and turned. It stopped halfway and refused to move further. I tried again, slower, no give, no sound inside, no light under the door. Daniel, I called, not loudly. Voices drifted faintly from the kitchen, dishes, low conversation, my name, and then Jenna's sharper whisper cutting through. We can't carry her forever. The words slid down the hallway and wrapped around me. I looked back at the locked door, my palm resting flat against it now. In a house where I was supposed to be family, the first thing that met me alone was a barrier, and on the other side of the wall they were already talking about how long they could stand to hold my weight. I woke up with my back arguing against the cot and the taste of someone else's house in my mouth, cleaner, coffee, and something tight in the air I couldn't name yet. The clock on my phone said 6:32. Voices murmured somewhere in the house, then a cupboard closed a little too hard. I eased myself up, pulled on my sweater, and stepped into the hallway. The bathroom that had refused me last night sat there, shut again, the knob neatly centered like a button no one wanted me to press. In the kitchen, the first thing I saw wasn't a person. It was a sheet of printer paper taped perfectly straight on the refrigerator. My name sat at the top next to Daniel's and Jenna's, underneath neat bullet points. Shower times. Which bathroom I should primarily use. Times when the hallway bath would be unavailable. Nighttime quiet hours. Notes about the stove, knives, and who handled my pills. It read like a policy, not a welcome. I was halfway down the page when Jenna walked in, ponytail already tied, leggings spotless. Morning, she said. I was going to go over that with you. You made a whole chart, I answered, trying to keep my tone neutral. She moved beside me, but not too close. With all of us on different schedules, this just keeps everything running smoothly. That way there are no surprises, no stress. Structure helps everyone. I tapped the line about locking shared bathroom after 10 p.m. to reduce disturbances. So if I need this one during the night. You just knock on our door, she said quickly. We'll let you use our bathroom, it's safer that way, less chance of falling in the dark or getting turned around. Turned around, that was a word we used for confused patients. Before I could respond, Daniel came in, already in a dress shirt, tie looped but not tightened. He grabbed his travel mug, poured coffee, kissed his wife's cheek. Did you see the new schedule? Jenna asked him. Yeah, looks fine, he said, eyes never leaving his phone. I've got a call at 8, I'm heading out. He gave me a quick, distracted smile. We'll talk later, Mom. The front door closed behind him, conversation over before it began. I turned to the stove, needing to reclaim something ordinary. How about I make breakfast? I said. Eggs, toast, I'm not completely useless. From the table, Maya perked up. Grandma's eggs are the best, she said, sitting up straighter. I reached for a pan hanging by the oven. My hand had just curled around the handle when Jenna stepped in, intercepting. I'd rather you didn't, she said, taking it gently but firmly from my fingers. The burners heat unevenly and the floor gets slippery if anything spills. One accident and we're in over our heads. It's too risky for you. I cooked in a hospital break room for decades, I reminded her. And now you're recovering from a bad fall, she countered. Let me take this off your plate so you don't end up back in one. She'd already set the pan on the stove. I was already sitting at the table. Maya slid her chair closer to mine, shoulders hunched like she was bracing for something. She waited until her mother turned to the fridge before leaning in. Grandma, she whispered. Yes, honey. Her fingers picked at a thread on her sleeve. Mom doesn't want you here. I didn't flinch, though the words landed exactly where last night's "we can't carry her forever" had settled. Why do you think that? I asked softly. I heard her talking to Dad, she murmured. She said everything would get messed up and she doesn't want another person to take care of. Her eyes filled with a guilt that wasn't hers. I'm sorry. I squeezed her hand under the table. You didn't do anything wrong, I said, and thank you for telling me. While the eggs sizzled, I let my gaze travel around the room looking for something to steady myself on, and that's when I saw it. A small white device high in the corner, a dark circle in the center, aimed at the kitchen table. Another above the back door. A third I realized when I leaned back in the hallway ceiling angled toward my room. When did you all put those in? I asked, nodding toward the corner. Oh, those, Jenna didn't turn around, just security devices. Everyone has them now, keeps us safe. Do they record? I kept my voice casual. Why pick up motion, she said. If anything happens, there's a record. She slid a plate in front of me, then added, almost as an afterthought, it's especially important now that you're here. Maya glanced up at the little black eye in the corner, then back at me. Her fingers tightened around mine. As I stared at that tiny lens watching us quietly from above, a thought settled in my chest, heavier than the rules on the fridge. I wasn't just a guest in this house. I was starting to feel like evidence. 3 days after I moved in, my phone rang while I was folding the same 2 cardigans for the 3rd time just to have something to do. Mrs. Brooks, a woman's voice asked. Yes, this is she. This is Carrie from Dr. Patel's office. We just wanted to confirm that you no longer need your follow-up appointment this Thursday. I sat down on the edge of the cot. I'm sorry, what? The follow-up regarding your hip and medication check, she clarified. It was canceled this morning. We just have to confirm you're aware since it came from your caretaker. The word hit harder than I expected. From who? Your caretaker, she repeated, reading it straight from a screen. It says a family member called on your behalf and said you weren't able to make decisions right now. We just need verbal confirmation that's accurate. My pulse thudded in my ears. I did not cancel that appointment, I said carefully, and I did not authorize anyone to say I can't make my own decisions. There was a pause. I could hear typing. All right, she said slowly. Do you still want to keep the Thursday slot? Yes, I replied. Please don't cancel anything without speaking to me directly. If someone calls claiming to speak for me, make sure I'm on the line. Understood, she said. We'll note that. Another pause. And Mrs. Brooks, if this happens again, you might want to mention it to the doctor in person. I plan to, I told her. When I walked into the kitchen, Jenna was rinsing dishes, her phone face down on the counter. She glanced up like she'd been caught halfway through a thought. Did you call my doctor? I asked, keeping my tone even. She blinked. What? No, why? They just phoned to confirm that my caretaker had canceled my checkup and said I couldn't make decisions. Her mouth opened, then snapped shut. That's odd, she said finally. I did call them to ask about your file, but I must have clicked the wrong option or something. You know how those phone trees are. It was probably just a misunderstanding. According to them, whoever called sounded very sure I'd agreed. She dried her hands on a towel, avoiding my eyes. Miscommunication happens, Evelyn. I was trying to help. It's hard keeping track of everything between work and your recovery. Maybe they wrote it down wrong. She said it gently, like I was the one overreacting. Years in the ICU taught me to recognize when someone was softening the edges around a lie. Later that afternoon, I walked with Maya to the mailbox at the end of their cul-de-sac. Bills, flyers, junk. She handed me the stack like a mailroom attendant. My name wasn't on a single envelope. No hospital statement, no insurance letters, no bank notices, nothing from the house I'd just left behind. Is there another pile? I asked. Maya shook her head. Dad usually brings the mail in before work. This is just today's. Back inside, I spotted a tidy stack of envelopes on the console table by the door, all opened, all neatly refolded. I recognized the crest on one before Jenna casually laid her planner on top of it. We've been sorting your paperwork with ours, she said when she caught me looking. Less chance of something important getting lost. Daniel said we should centralize things while you're here. Daniel echoed it verbatim that night, standing in my doorway with his tie loosened and his eyes tired. If you let us handle the mail and bills, there's less for you to stress over. I can set everything up online, automatic, streamlined. I've managed my own life for 68 years, I reminded him. I know, he said, rubbing his forehead, but you also fell down a staircase. Just trust me on this, it's temporary. Temporary arrangements had a way of becoming permanent when no one wrote the end date down. After he left, I pulled my suitcase onto the cot and unzipped the inner lining. In the hospital, I'd kept notes on everything: vital signs, family interactions, quiet comments that changed the course of care. I had slipped a small spiral notebook in there before I left my house, more out of habit than foresight. I opened to the first page and wrote the date. Cameras in kitchen hall by my room. Posted schedule with quiet hours and bathroom lock. Doctor's office said caretaker canceled my appointment. Mail being opened before I see it. My handwriting shook slightly, but the letters stayed legible. Old muscle memory. When the house finally settled that night, TV off, light under Daniel and Jenna's door gone, I sat on the edge of the cot with my phone in my hand and the little notebook beside me. On the back of the guidelines sheet in tiny print, Jenna had listed community support resources. It was meant to look responsible. One number was for a senior resource line. I dialed it. Central Virginia Senior Services, a calm voice said. How can I help you tonight? I swallowed. I'm not sure yet, I admitted. I just moved in with my son and things don't feel right. Someone just told my doctor I can't make my own choices. There was a brief silence, the kind where someone on the other end is rearranging their posture. Okay, the woman said, voice turning focused. I'm glad you called. Can I ask you a question to start? Yes. Has anyone there tried to control your medical care, your money, or your access to information without your consent? I looked at the closed door, at the faint red glow of a camera's standby light in the hall, and felt my heart thud against my ribs. I think, I whispered, that's exactly what they've started doing. The fourth night, the house went quiet the way hospitals do after visiting hours, lights dim, doors closed, everyone pretending to rest. I lay on the cot, staring at the faint red glow from the hallway camera, when their voices cut through the thin wall. I can't keep doing this, Daniel, Jenna said, her tone sharp and low. We are drowning. Paper rustled, something thumped, maybe a drawer. I shifted closer to the wall, careful not to make the frame squeak. We're managing, he said. Barely, but we are. Barely isn't good enough, she shot back. Look at these balances. Minimum payments, late fees, this is years of our lives. Meanwhile, your mother's sitting on savings, a house, insurance. Her assets could solve this in one move. My chest tightened, but I kept my breathing slow. In the ICU, I had learned when people forget you might hear them, they tell the truth. That's her money, Daniel said, but with more fatigue than conviction. She doesn't even live there anymore, Jenna pressed. It's just sitting. We can't even talk to her bank without running into privacy laws. A pause. You know what has to happen. She needs to be declared unable. The words landed like a cold hand on the back of my neck. Not yet, Daniel muttered. She's still sharp. The way she handled that call with the resource lady, if anyone tests her right now, she passes. Which is exactly why we need to start documenting things, Jenna replied. The fall, the forgetfulness, the paranoia. We show a pattern. When the time comes, it won't look sudden. I slipped my hand under my pillow and pulled out the small notebook. In the dim light from the hall, I wrote by feel. Late night fight about debt. Jenna, her assets could solve this. She needs to be declared unable. Daniel, not yet. She's still sharp. My fingers were steady, my heart was not. Their voices faded after a while, replaced by the low murmur of a TV and then plumbing noises as they got ready for bed. Eventually, even that went silent. I had almost closed my eyes when something scraped softly against my door. A whisper of paper. I waited, no footsteps, no knock, just the vent humming overhead. I eased myself up, crossed the few steps, and bent carefully. A folded page lay on the floor, pushed in from the hallway. Inside, in thick crayon lines, Maya had drawn 4 figures, her and her parents on one side, me on the other, standing near a small building with flowers out front that looked nothing like this house. At the bottom, in uneven letters, she'd written, "Grandma, please don't disappear." I swallowed hard, slid her drawing between the mattress and the metal frame, and opened my notebook again. Even Meyer expects me to be taken away. I capped the pen, lay back on the cot, and stared at the ceiling while their plan and my granddaughter's fear pressed in from both sides. They thought they were building a case. They had no idea I'd already started mine. The night it happened, I woke up because my body remembered I was 68 before my mind did. My bladder dragged me out of a shallow sleep. The cot creaked as I shifted, metal bar pressing my hip. For a moment I considered just waiting it out, but the ache made the decision for me. The hallway outside my door was dim, lit only by a sliver of light from the nightlight near the stairs. The little red ring on the camera glowed steady, watching its stretch of carpet like always. I eased my door open, careful with the handle. Daniel and Jenna's room was dark, their door mostly closed. The house hummed, fridge cycling, heater kicking on, a car passing somewhere far off. The bathroom that had been off limits at night sat halfway down the hall. Every other night the knob had resisted me, unyielding, smug. Tonight, out of habit more than hope, I reached for it and turned. It moved. The latch clicked softly and the door opened an inch. I froze, heart thudding in my ears louder than any nightly house noise. For a second, instinct told me to back away, use their ends sweet, avoid trouble. Then the nurse in me, the one who had peeked behind hundreds of staff-only curtains when something felt wrong, stepped forward. I pushed the door open. The overhead light was off, but the small vanity bulb over the mirror had been left on, spilling a tired yellow onto gleaming tile. Everything was a little too organized. Towels folded with hotel precision. No stray toothpaste, no clutter. What drew my eye wasn't the sink, it was the back of the toilet. A white binder sat there, thick and closed, just slightly off-center. People in a hurry leave things in strange places. My name was visible through the clear front sleeve, EVLYNBROOKS Care Transfer Plan. They hadn't even spelled it right. The room swayed for half a second. I grabbed the edge of the sink, let the wave pass, and then reached for the binder. Inside, color-coded tabs, the kind you buy when you're planning to impress an audience. The first section, Intake Forms, I flipped through and my own life stared back at me, birthdate, address, insurance information, all filled in with handwriting that wasn't mine. Behind that, photocopies of doctor notes I recognized from past appointments. Someone had highlighted every mention of fall risk, forgetfulness, monitoring, like they were building a thesis. The next tab stopped me cold. Cognitive status, preliminary assessment. Checklists, little boxes next to phrases like difficulty managing finances, trouble following conversation, disoriented in familiar environments. Most of them had neat marks already in place. At the bottom, a line for evaluator's signature sat blank. They were practicing the story before bringing in an audience. I flipped again, printed emails from what looked like a county services coordinator, language about Medicaid-eligible options, long-term care facilities, when family caregivers are overburdened. One name was circled in blue ink, a state-funded nursing home half an hour away. Tucked into the pocket at the back was a printout of a web page. Application submitted, pending review, my name at the top, again spelled wrong but my social security number correct. I felt my mouth go dry. They weren't just talking anymore, they were applying. A soft clink drew my attention to the vanity. Next to the faucet sat a plastic pill organizer I hadn't seen before, translucent and locked, with small compartments labeled by day and time. A strip of masking tape ran across the top in Jenna's tidy handwriting, DOSAGES modified, do not alter. Through the cloudy plastic, I could see pills that looked like my prescriptions and some that didn't, extra half tablets in some compartments, nothing in others. I picked it up, turned it in my hands. My original bottles were supposed to be in the kitchen cabinet with clear labels and instructions from my doctor. If I swallowed whatever schedule this box dictated without question, and then I stumbled, got confused, slurred my words on paper, it would reinforce every box they'd already checked. Unable, I thought, staring at the tape, not because I am, because they need me to be. I set the organizer back exactly where it had been, turned to the binder, and flipped to the last page. At the bottom, in Jenna's handwriting again, a note. Need consistent documentation of incidents. Emphasize safety concerns. Don't wait until crisis. I closed the binder, hands steady now. My own notebook waited under my pillow, its pages empty except for my small, cramped lines. Their version of my story was organized, color-coded, backed up with applications and altered pills. Mine had truth. I slid the binder back to the exact ring of dust it had left on the porcelain tank, turned off the vanity light, and cracked the door just enough to look out. The hallway camera's red eye stared back, unaware that for once it had missed something important. I padded back to my room, shut the door, and sat on the edge of the cot with my notebook. Under the last entry, I pressed my pen harder than before and wrote, "Found care transfer plan binder in hall bathroom. Dementia forms filled out not signed. State facility application already submitted. New pill box labeled dosages modified." My hand stopped mid-sentence as another realization slid into place, colder than anything I'd seen in that bathroom. If they were willing to rewrite my mind on paper and in pills, the next thing they'd try to control wouldn't be my appointments or my mail. It would be my signature. Morning came without any real sleep. I'd spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, feeling every metal bar of the cot and seeing that binder every time I blinked. When I stepped into the hallway, I made sure my shoulders drooped a little, my steps stayed slow. If they were watching for frailty, I'd let them think they were seeing what they wanted on my terms. The hen smelled like toast and coffee. Jenna was already moving around, polished and put together like she'd never had a restless night in her life. Her eyes did a quick sweep over me, how I walked, how I held the counter, before she smiled. "Good morning," she said. "You're right on time." She set a plate in front of me, a small scoop of eggs, half a slice of toast, a few thin apple slices, neat, controlled portions. "Still keeping things light for you," she added. "We don't want you too tired during the day." I smiled back. "You're very efficient," I said. While she turned to the stove, I nudged the food around, lifting the fork to my mouth now and then. When her back was turned, I slid most of the eggs into a napkin on my lap, folded it quickly, and tucked it into my robe pocket. I'd learned long ago, sometimes charts lie, evidence doesn't. "Don't forget your pills," she said, opening a cabinet. She came back with that new plastic organizer, the one with the tape across the top, no sign of my proper bottles. She popped open the morning compartment and shook the tablets into her hand. "Here we go," she said brightly, "everything you need all together." I opened my palm, 3 pills and a half tablet, not what my doctor had prescribed. "Water?" she asked, already pushing the glass toward me. I lifted the cup, tipped the pills into my mouth, and took a long drink, hiding them against my cheek like a non-compliant patient. She watched my throat, satisfied when I swallowed. "Perfect," she said. "We're getting into a rhythm." Daniel walked in, knotting his tie. "Hey, Mom," he said. "Remember, if you need the bathroom at night, use ours. The hall one is too confusing." "I'll manage," I told him lightly. "I know the rules." He nodded, as if praising a child for remembering basic instructions, and left for work. Later, when Jenna started a load of laundry, I told her I wanted to stretch my leg. She waved me off with a reminder to keep my phone on me. At the end of the street where their camera couldn't reach, I sat on the low brick wall and pulled out the number I'd copied from the resource sheet. My fingers shook, but not enough to stop me dialing. "Senior Housing Support, this is Tara," a calm voice answered. "My name is Evelyn," I said quietly. "I think my son and his wife are changing my medication to make me look unwell, and I just found paperwork for a facility I never agreed to." Tara didn't rush to fill the silence. When she spoke, her voice was steady and firm. "All right, Evelyn," she said. "If someone in your home is tampering with your meds to question your sanity, this isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous." I closed my eyes. "What do I do?" "You don't argue with them about it," she replied. "You document everything and we start planning a way out." "A way out?" I repeated. "Yes," she said, "because if they're willing to drug you to look incompetent, you don't just need advice, you need to get out of that house safely before they sign you away." The next morning, I decided if they were going to treat that hallway bathroom like a weapon, I needed to put my fingerprints on it carefully. I waited until Daniel was home from work, still in his shirt sleeves but without his tie, the time of day when he was tired enough to be honest and not tired enough to snap. Jenna was in the kitchen, banging pans a little louder than necessary. Maya was in her room with the door cracked, homework spread across the floor. I walked down the hall, cane tapping lightly, and stopped at the bathroom door. I wrapped my hand around the knob and gave it a firm rattle, then a louder one. "Oh no," I said, just loud enough to travel. "I think I've jammed it." The words echoed just the way I intended. Daniel appeared almost immediately, frowning. "What happened?" "I tried to use it earlier," I said, stepping back. "Now it won't turn at all. I hope I didn't break anything." He put his hand on the knob, gave it a test twist, then sighed. "It's fine, the latch sticks if you don't do it just right." He reached up to the top of the door frame and without thinking pulled down a flat brass key I hadn't known was there. My stomach gave a small lurch. He slid it into a barely visible slot under the knob and flicked his wrist. The lock popped open with a soft click, familiar, practiced. "There," he said, "try not to crank it too hard next time, okay? This door's finicky." His tone made it sound like an old house quirk, not a setup he'd clearly rehearsed. "I'll be more careful," I promised, watching the way he replaced the key along the frame, exactly where his fingers already knew to go. When he headed back toward the living room, I slipped my phone from my pocket. With my back to the hallway camera, I pretended to lean on the doorframe for support and snapped 2 quick photos, one of the little keyhole under the knob, one of the key's hiding place. Later, over dinner, Jenna brought it up. "Mom," she said, using the word like it tasted sour, "Daniel said you jammed the bathroom again. Were you trying to use it last night too?" Maya's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "I went to the door," I said calmly. "It didn't open, I didn't force it." "That's the second time you've forgotten which bathroom to use," Jenna replied, voice lined with concern that didn't reach her eyes. "You're not supposed to be in that hallway after dark, you could get turned around." There it was again, her favorite hint, confused, wandering. "I slept fine," I said, cutting my chicken. "I remember exactly where I went." She glanced at Daniel. "This is what I mean," she murmured. "If she starts roaming at night, it's not safe for her or for us." I didn't respond. I just took a small bite and thought of Tara's voice on the phone, "Document everything." The next day, while Jenna took Maya to a birthday party, I told Daniel I wanted to stop at the pharmacy to ask about a cheaper brace for my knee. He dropped me at the strip mall and said he'd pick me up in an hour. I went inside the drugstore long enough to be seen on camera, then walked back out and around the corner to the row of offices behind it. Suite 204 had a simple plaque, "Benjamin Lasker, Elder Law and Estate Planning." The receptionist buzzed me in as soon as I gave my name. 5 minutes later, I was sitting across from a man in his 50s with kind eyes and a legal pad already open. "Tell me what's going on, Mrs. Brooks," he said. I told him, not just the binder and the pills, but the schedule on the fridge, the cameras, the phone call to my doctor, the word "unable" hanging over everything like a storm cloud. He listened without interrupting, pen moving only to jot down dates, names, phrases. When I finished, he tapped the pad once. "What they're circling around," he said, "is guardianship. If they get that, they get control over your money, your medical decisions, even where you live." "I thought that," I said quietly. "I just didn't want to believe my own son would agree to it." He didn't sugarcoat it. "Desperate people do ugly things, but desperation doesn't override your rights." "Can they win?" I asked. His mouth tightened. "Not if we get ahead of it." He leaned forward. "If they're building a case that you're incompetent, we build the opposite, proof of capacity, updated documents, protections. If they're attempting guardianship, we'll shut it down permanently." A knot in my chest loosened for the first time in days. "How?" I asked. He gave a faint, almost grim smile. "First, we make it legally impossible for them to benefit from you losing control," he said. "Then we let them show their hand." Ben moved faster than my fear. Within a few days, I was back in his office, pen in hand, signing my name over and over while he walked me through each page. This packet, he said, tapping one stack, controls what happens to your savings and your house. Your son and his wife are no longer in line for any of it. He didn't say if they tried something, he said when. We drafted a new will, a living trust, and fresh powers of attorney that named a neutral professional instead of Daniel. Every clause took one more lever out of their hands. Anyone who looks at this later, Ben said, will see a woman making clear, informed choices. That's important. I want there to be no reward for what they're doing, I told him. Exactly, he said, you're removing the incentive. He handed me an envelope thick with originals. Keep these where they can't accidentally get filed with the junk mail. That night in my little storage room, I opened my suitcase again. One by one, I slid in my documents, birth certificate, mortgage paperwork, policy statements I'd pulled from beneath Jenna's planner, and now Ben's envelope. The lining bulged slightly when I zipped it, but the zipper held. If they ever packed this suitcase for me, they'd be carrying out the very evidence that could ruin their plan. The thought almost made me smile. The next call was to Tara. We've got the legal groundwork started, I told her from my usual spot at the end of the street. Now I need somewhere to land that they don't control. Then we tour, she said. I'll set up a few places, you'll know quickly what feels wrong and what feels right. To get out, I floated a story over dinner. An old nurse friend reached out, I said casually. She's on the west side now, we thought we'd meet for lunch, swap war stories. Jenna pursed her lips. Daniel asked where. I named a busy area near a hospital, enough public eyes to soothe their nerves. Text us when you're there, he said, and don't overdo it. Of course, I replied. The friend I met in that parking lot was Tara, holding a clipboard instead of a purse. The first two facilities felt like holding pens. Television blaring, residents parked in corridors, staff shouting questions at people who answered slowly. I could almost hear Jenna's voice narrating it as necessary structure. Last stop, Tara said, I think you'll want to actually breathe at this one. Oak Haven sat behind a row of trees, modest brick buildings with balconies and a small garden near the entrance. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and laundry, not chemicals. A woman at the front desk greeted me by name, looking directly at me, not at Tara. Would you like to sit, Ms. Brooks? She asked. We go at your pace here. The director showed us an apartment, real kitchen, window-facing trees, grab bars in the bathroom, but nothing that screamed hospital. Residents walked in and out of their own doors, chatting, carrying books, holding mugs. What matters most to you day to day? He asked me. I heard my own voice before I even planned the words. I want to decide what goes into my body and when I walk outside, I said, and I don't want anyone rearranging my life behind my back. He nodded like that was the most reasonable request in the world. Then we put that in writing, he said. Here, your choices stay yours. Later, sitting in the lobby with a brochure in my hand and Tara watching my face, I traced the little rectangle labeled one bedroom, East View. Is this it? She asked quietly. It could be, I said. It feels like somewhere I could actually live, not be stored. On the ride back to Daniel's house, his complaints about gas prices and deadlines washed over me. In my pocket, the Oak Haven card pressed against my fingers like a key. For the first time since I'd moved in with my son, I wasn't just hoping they'd stop. I was planning the day I'd walk out on my own terms. Daniel drove home like he always did, one hand on the wheel, half focused on traffic, half on whatever numbers were running in his head. The difference was inside my purse, Ben's paperwork, Oak Haven's brochure, my exit. How was lunch? He asked. Productive, I said. He hummed, not really listening. The moment we stepped inside, I knew they'd rehearsed something. The TV was off, coffee table cleared, a neat fan of brochures waited there like placemats. Jenna stood beside them, arms folded too tight. We need to sit down, she said, no hello. I stayed by the doorway, leaning lightly on my cane. All right. Daniel sank into the armchair, shoulders hunched. Jenna picked up the top brochure and held it out toward me, gray brick building, government logo, the same name I'd seen circled in that bathroom binder. We've been looking at options, she began. places that are better equipped for your needs. She spread more pages: skilled nursing, memory care, smiling stock photos under fluorescent lights. With your falls, the night confusion, the meds, Daniel added, not quite meeting my eyes. We can't keep doing this indefinitely, Mom, it's too much. So you two have picked out a home for me, I said. Jenna lifted her chin. We're being responsible, this one is covered, it's realistic. I set my purse on the table right on top of their stack. You're late, I said quietly. I already chose where I'm going. She frowned. What? I opened my folder and slid a single page toward Daniel. Start with that. He read the heading and his face drained. Revocation of healthcare proxy, he murmured. His eyes moved down the page. Designation of new agent filed with court. He looked up at me stunned. You removed me. I corrected a mistake, I answered. You don't speak for me anymore, not to doctors, not to agencies, not to anyone. Jenna snatched the paper. You don't understand this legal stuff, she snapped. Someone's taking advantage of you. His name is Ben, I said. He specializes in stopping exactly what you've been planning. My phone buzzed. Perfect timing. Evelyn, Ben's voice came through when I answered. The judge signed the protective order. No guardianship petition can move forward without your counsel present. I've notified your physician and flagged your file for any concerned family calls. You're on speaker, I told him, looking at my son. Ben continued, tone all business. If anyone tampers with your meds or misrepresents your mental state, that's evidence. Keep documenting, we'll handle the rest. Thank you, I said, ending the call. The room felt smaller now, their brochures suddenly cheap. Jenna recovered first. You can't live alone, she said. These places cost money, do you have any idea? Yes, I cut in. I've seen where I'm going. It's called Oak Haven. I signed the lease. I keep my doctor, and nobody locks a bathroom on me at night. Daniel finally met my eyes. Behind the anger, there was something like fear. You went behind our backs, he said. I almost laughed. You started that game. Down the hall, a floorboard creaked. I saw Maya's door crack open, her small face peeking out, watching her father realize he'd just lost control of the one person he thought he could move like furniture. And I hadn't even told them I had a move-in date. I didn't announce my move-in date. I put it on the calendar. The morning I chose, I wrote appointment 11 a.m. in small, neat letters on the fridge schedule Jenna loved so much. She glanced at it while pouring her coffee, frowned, but said nothing. 2 days later, I set my suitcase on the cot and opened it for the last time in that house. I packed slowly, not because my body demanded it, but because I wanted to feel each thing I chose. A few changes of clothes, my worn cardigan, the small framed photo of my husband, Maya's crayon drawing that had once begged me not to disappear. Jenna hovered in the doorway like a supervisor. You don't have to rush into this, she said. You're making a big decision in an emotional state. I folded another blouse. The lease is signed, I said. The deposit is paid. This is not a mood, it's a plan. Those places promise the world, she insisted. Then you get there and realize. I've been there, I cut in. I know exactly what I'm walking into, which is more than I can say about what you and Daniel had in mind. Her jaw clenched. After everything we've done for you. I closed the suitcase. The zipper's smooth glide felt like a period at the end of a sentence. You did things to me, not for me, I said. There's a difference. She went very still, then spun away, calling for Daniel. He came in a minute later, eyes already shiny. For once, no phone in his hand, just his sun face, the one I remembered under all the exhaustion. So that's it, he asked. You're really leaving? Yes. He sat down on the cot beside the suitcase, elbows on his knees, and stared at the floor. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. We were drowning, Mom, he whispered. I didn't know what else to do. We were desperate. I believed him. I also remembered the pill box labeled dosages modified. I rested my hand on the suitcase handle. Desperation explains a lot of things, I said quietly. It doesn't excuse cruelty. He flinched like I'd slapped him, but he didn't argue. A soft knock sounded and Maya slid into the room, eyes already red. Do you have to go? She asked, voice wobbling. I do, I said because I refused to lie to her, but I'm not disappearing, I'm changing addresses. She threw her arms around me, holding on like she could anchor me there by force of will. Can I visit? She whispered into my shoulder. I pulled back just enough to look her in the eye. Any time an adult brings you, that door is open to you, I said. We'll have cookies and terrible TV and you can tell me everything they won't. She gave a wet little laugh, wiped her face on her sleeve and nodded. Right on 11, a knock sounded at the front door, firm, professional. Jenna answered it, then stepped back like someone had pushed her. Tara stood there in her blazer, a clipboard in hand, with a driver behind her ready to take my suitcase. Mrs. Brooks, Tara said, smiling at me, not at them. Ready when you are. I took one last look at the room that had never really been mine, then wrapped my fingers around the handle and rolled my life down the hallway, past the bathroom they'd tried to weaponize, past the cameras, past the fridge schedule with my small appointment still written on it. At the door, Jenna's voice trembled between anger and panic. You're making a mistake, she said. You'll come back. I paused on the threshold, the autumn air cool against my face. No, I said. If I come back here, it'll be to pick up my granddaughter, not to live under your lock and key. Daniel didn't try to hug me. He just stood there, hands useless at his sides, tears finally breaking free. I walked to the car without help, climbed in on my own and shut the door myself, feeling for the first time in a long time exactly who was on the inside and who was not. As we pulled away, Maya ran to her window and pressed her palm against the glass. I raised my hand in return, watching the house shrink in the side mirror, and thought. They had planned to deliver me to a place of their choosing. Instead, they had just watched me drive toward a life they would never control again. Moving into Oak Haven felt less like being admitted somewhere and more like getting my own keys back. My unit was small, a bedroom, a sitting area, a kitchenette, but every object in it belonged to me. No storage bins, no cot. The first morning I woke up when I wanted to, not when anyone's schedule told me to. No red camera light in the hallway, just sunlight edging around the blinds and the faint murmur of other people starting their day. Breakfast wasn't rationed or timed. I Ed myself down to the dining room, picked up a tray, and the woman at the counter asked, "What sounds good today, Ms. Brooks?" "Not here, ask what you're allowed." I ordered oatmeal, fruit, and a full piece of toast simply because no one was counting my bites. When I carried my tray to a table, a staff member offered, "Need a hand with that?" I said no, and she smiled and walked away. They offered help, they didn't assume I couldn't manage. By day 3, I had a small rhythm, morning coffee in the courtyard, watching the maple trees shift color, a chair yoga class I could drop into or skip without anyone scolding me, a book group where people argued about plot twists instead of pill schedules. People here asked, "What do you like to do?" not "What are you still able to do?" Ben called on my second afternoon. "Just got the court-stamped copies," he said. "Everything's in place now, trust, directives, financial safeguards. If anyone tries to move against you, they'll hit a wall of paperwork and a judge who's already seen your side." "Good," I said, looking around my little living room. "I'd like them to get very tired before they even reach my name." He chuckled. "How are you settling in?" "I can open any door I want," I told him. "That about covers it." The email started on day 5. Daniel's first message was short, "Mom, are you okay?" The next was longer, explanations, debt, panic, regret threaded between excuses. He typed "we" a lot, but the guilt sounded like his alone. I read every word, then I closed the laptop without replying. Jenna never wrote. Maya's name showed up in the visitor log before either of them tried to come in person. She walked into the lobby clutching a plastic container like it was an offering. "I made these with Dad," she said, lifting the lid to show slightly lopsided chocolate chip cookies. He burned the first batch. "Good," I answered, "keeps him humble." Her shoulders relaxed, the joke landed. We sat at my little table, crumbs everywhere, her chattering about school and how weird the house felt without me there. "Do you like it here?" she asked finally, eyes searching my face. "I do," I said. "People knock before they come in and no one tells me which bathroom I'm allowed to use." She snorted, then sobered. Mom says you abandoned us, she admitted, then looked horrified she'd said it aloud. I didn't abandon anyone, I replied. I stopped letting myself be treated badly, those are different things. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded, as if filing that away for later in her own life. When she left, we walked to the front door together. She hugged me hard, then whispered, Dad wants to come see you, but he's scared you'll yell at him. I'm not interested in yelling, I said, but I am interested in the truth. On my way back to the apartment, I passed the activities board. Someone had written in neat marker, family visit room available by appointment, staff present on request. I looked at the words at the quiet hallway that belonged to me now and felt a calm I hadn't known in months. If Daniel wanted to talk, this time it would be on neutral ground with witnesses if I chose. For the first time in our lives, any conversation between us would happen in a room where I controlled the door. They called up from the front desk before they let him through. Ms. Brooks, your son Daniel is here. Would you like to meet with him? We can put you in the family room. That question, would you like to, was the first power I didn't have in his house. Yes, I said, family room, door open, please stay nearby. When I walked in, he was already there, elbows on his knees, staring at the carpet pattern like it might give him answers. No Jenna, no brochures, just my son looking smaller than I'd seen him in years. Hi Mom, he said, half standing. Daniel, I replied, taking the armchair opposite instead of the couch beside him. A staff member at the desk down the hall kept us in her periphery. So this is where you live now, he said, glancing around. It's nice. It is, I said. Sit down, say what you came to say. He winced at my tone, then took a breath. We didn't know how to deal with everything, he blurted. Your fall, your meds, work, the bills, it all hit at once. We were trying to manage your needs and ours, and you weren't managing me, I interrupted, calm but firm. You were controlling me. He opened his mouth, then shut it. His shoulders sagged. Maybe, he whispered, probably, I don't know anymore. Silence settled between us. He filled it first. We're in real trouble, Mom, he said. We maxed everything out, the cards, the line of credit. We're behind on the mortgage. When you moved in, it felt like maybe there was a way out. Your accounts, the house, the insurance. His voice cracked. I told myself we were doing what any family would do. Plenty of families don't drug grandma and file papers behind her back, I said. He winced as if I'd slapped him. I hate what we did, he said. I think about that locked bathroom every night. I'm not asking you to forget it. He swallowed. We're going to lose everything. I let that hang in the air. I'm not coming to your rescue, I said. Not financially, not this time. If I bail you out after what you did, I'm teaching you my safety is negotiable. His eyes glossed over. So that's it, you're done with me. No, I said, I'm done being used. I still love you. I hope you get honest, get help, become a father Maya can trust, but you're going to have to rebuild your life without my money as the foundation. He stood slowly, like his legs were heavier than he remembered. I don't deserve a second chance, he murmured. Maybe not, I said, but if you ever earn one, it won't start with a check. He nodded, shame written all over him, and walked toward the door. At the threshold he hesitated, looking back at me in the room I'd chosen for myself, then at the staff who answered to me, not him. For the first time he seemed to understand. Whatever came next between us would be on my terms or not at all. Ben asked to meet in person, which usually meant good news or very bad. We sat in a small conference room at Oak Haven that smelled faintly of coffee and dry erase markers. He spread a file between us, his expression more serious than usual. I pulled some additional court records, he said. I wanted to be sure we weren't missing anything. That sounds ominous, I replied. He turned a page toward me. On top was a scanned form with my name typed neatly across the top and another date that made my stomach drop. 3 months ago, he said, tapping the heading, before your fall, before you moved in with them, Daniel met with an intake clerk about starting guardianship proceedings. I stared at the date again, the ink-stamped day after my husband's funeral. He told them he was worried you were slipping and overwhelmed by paperwork, Ben went on. He didn't file the full petition, but this is the dress rehearsal. The breath went out of me in a slow, controlled exhale, so the conversation in that bedroom hadn't been the spark, it was step 2. "Does he know you found this?" I asked. "No," Ben said, "and he doesn't need to. What matters is that a judge sees a pattern. He's been circling your autonomy for a while." "And now?" I asked. "Now you draw a line that outlives you," he said simply. The new estate documents were thicker than the last set. My pen moved steadily, signing where Ben pointed, my name carving a different future than the one my son had sketched out in secret. "This version," Ben said, "removes Daniel and Jenna entirely as beneficiaries or decision makers. They can't inherit, can't speak for you, can't claim we didn't know. We created something new in their absence." "When Maya turns 18, I said, "I want her listed as my person, not for money, for contact. If somebody has to be called, I want it to be her." "Emotional next of kin," Ben said, writing it in. "Notification rights, visit rights, no financial responsibility." I signed that too, imagining her older, standing in a world where she knew exactly why I'd done this. We completed an advance directive naming Oak Haven not a facility, but this specific community as my chosen home for as long as I needed one. No more mystery applications, no more surprise transfers. If anyone wanted to move me again, they'd have to fight my own words. When Ben left, I called Tara. "I want to do something with some of the money they didn't get," I told her. "Something that makes this bigger than just my story." Within a week, we'd found 2 local organizations that provided legal aid and emergency housing for seniors being pushed around by their own families. I wrote the checks in the common room, hand steady, heart lighter than it had any right to be. "This will keep some other grandmother from sitting in a locked hallway," Tara said, squeezing my shoulder. A few days later, she organized a small gathering in Oak Haven's activity room. Nothing fancy, coffee, cookies, a handful of residents who'd heard pieces of my story and staff who understood the stakes. Tara raised a paper cup. "To Evelyn," she said, "who refused to be managed and chose to be free instead." People clapped. I felt my cheeks heat, not from embarrassment but from something like pride. As the group drifted away, Tara stayed behind, helping fold chairs. "You know," she said, "you've basically rewritten your family on paper." "I had to," I said. "The people who keep me safe now aren't the ones I raised, they're the ones I chose." She nodded toward the window where the evening light was fading over the trees. "Picking your own family is one thing," she said. "Living with the silence that follows is another." I looked at the empty doorway, at the space where apologies might never arrive, and realized the next decision wouldn't be legal at all. It would be whether keeping that silence was strength, or just another kind of lock I was putting on myself. Daniel's voicemail waited on my phone like an unopened lab result. For 2 days, I ignored the little red dot. I went to breakfast, to chair yoga, to the afternoon movie in the lounge. The message stayed patient, not chasing me down a hallway. On the 3rd evening, I made tea, sat in my armchair facing the window, and finally pressed play. "Mom, it's Daniel." He sounded older and somehow younger all at once. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me," he said. "The bank's on us, the house might go, Jenna's furious. I'm not calling to ask for anything, I get it now, why you left, why you changed everything. I'm glad you're somewhere safe, I'm sorry." A shaky breath, then the recording ended with a soft click. My thumb hovered over the screen, over the little curved arrow that would call him back. For the first time in my life, I realized I didn't owe a response. Understanding his remorse didn't require letting him back into my daily peace. I hit save and set the phone face down. The quiet that followed didn't feel empty, it felt earned. Life at Oak Haven kept expanding around that silence. One of the rec directors nudged me into a writing workshop. "You've got stories in you, Evelyn, I can see it." We sat in a circle with cheap notebooks, and when they asked us to write about a moment you took your life back, my pen didn't hesitate. I didn't use names, I didn't have to. When I read my pages aloud, a woman across from me wiped her eyes and said, "I thought I was the only one whose kids tried to put her away early." Maya's letters started coming twice a week, fat with folded notebook paper and stickers. She told me about math quizzes, a new girl at school, how weird it was not seeing my suitcase by the stairs. I wrote back about my garden plot, the neighbor who always burned his toast, the way freedom felt in my chest. One afternoon, Tara stopped by between appointments, collapsing into my spare chair with a grin. "You know," she said, "a lot of people get rescued out of situations like yours. You're one of the rare ones who rescued herself." Later, I opened my journal, the same one that once held timestamps of cruelty, and added a new line under today's date. Today, I let a voicemail sit unanswered and felt more whole, not less. Silence, used right, can be a shelter instead of a cage. By the time winter rolled into spring, my days had a softness I hadn't felt in years. Mornings were for the garden. I'd shuffle out to the raised beds behind Oak Haven with my little trowel and a mug of coffee, checking on tomatoes, coaxing herbs back from the cold. No one timed me. No one told me where I should be instead. If I wanted to stand in the sun 10 extra minutes, that was between me and the weather. Afternoons were books, workshops, and the kind of quiet where your mind can wander without bracing for footsteps in the hall. Sometimes I joined the writing group, sometimes I didn't. Either way, the only person my choices inconvenienced was me. Every so often, my phone lit up with Daniel's name. Long emails, short texts, updates, apologies, circles around the same regret. I read them when I felt strong, then closed the screen. No replies, not from anger anymore, just from a decision to let my peace stay intact. Maya's presence was different. She showed up one Saturday with a new backpack and a confidence that hadn't been there before. "I made honor roll," she said, dropping onto my love seat, "and I'm in the math club now." I hugged her, feeling pride settle where worry used to live. Later, while we shared tea and the last of some cookies I'd saved, she went quiet. "You know what I like best," she said. "When I come here, I'm not scared something bad is happening to you. I feel safe with Grandma again." That word "again" told me exactly how much she'd seen. After she left, I opened my old notebook one more time. On the final page, I wrote, "Freedom tastes like choosing my own key." I closed it gently, set it beside my chair, and watched the light fade over the garden. That 3M bathroom door didn't take me to a facility, it led me back to myself.